Hello grade 10s and welcome back again to yet another video. So again I'm still looking at algebraic expressions for grade 10 factorization. You will remember that in the previous video we looked at the tools that you have when you encounter a problem in factorization. We said we can deal with common factor, grouping, difference of two squares, quadratic, trinomials, sum and difference of two squares, of two cubes rather. So I want to particularly focus on quadratic trinomials. Quadratic trinomials. You will remember that quadratic trinomials take the form ax squared plus bx plus c. So I will tackle these in two different ways. I'll first look at the ones that take just the form x squared plus bx plus c. So it means in this form their coefficient a here would be 1. So it means a would be just 1. Right, without any waste of time, let us look at an example where now I am given x squared minus 9x plus 20. So a question comes, factorize this expression. And you would remember that these are expressions because they don't have an equal sign. This is just a set of numbers or set of terms separated by plus or minus without an equal sign. Hence we call it an expression. Right, so how does one go about factorizing such an expression? Easy. So we are going to first look at the factors of the first term, and then we also look at the factors of the last term. However, for the factors of the last term, these are two numbers that when we multiply, they need to give us a 20. Then when we add them or when we subtract them, they just need to give us a 9. Bearing in mind that the last sign is positive. So I'll also take you through that. What does it mean? So we'll just need factors of the first term. So we'll need factors of first term. And then we also need factors of last term. And then such that when we multiply them, they will give us this last term. When we add or subtract them, they will give us the middle term. And our middle term in this case is just a 9. And then in terms of the signs, we are looking at the last sign. So if the last sign, so by last sign I mean the sign of the last term, if the last sign is positive, then it tells me something. If the last sign is positive, it means when I factorize, I'll have two brackets, and then it means either both brackets are going to be positive, or both brackets are going to be negative. And then how do you decide? For you to decide whether they are positive or negative, this is the deciding vote. The bigger factor, so bigger factor will take the sign of the middle term. Takes the sign of the middle term. Right, these are just notes. I will explain what I mean just now. Right, the bigger factor will take the sign of the middle term. Let's go back again. We said if we are given the expression x squared minus 9x plus 20, factorize. So checking this, we'll just have again two brackets, then simplifying this or factorizing this, we'll have factors of the first term. These will be x and x, then factors of 20. So let's just write down a list of factors, two numbers that we can multiply to give us 20, 1 and 20, 2 and 10, Then we cannot multiply 3 with anything to give us 20, so 4, it has to be 4 and 5, then 5 and 4, and then 10 and 2, and then 20 and 1. It's the same thing, right? So from all these vectors, we are going to look at the ones that are going to be, when multiplied, they will give us definitely 20, but when we add or subtract them, they will give us this 9 that we are looking for here. So if you're looking at these two, the product of these two is 20, but the sum of these two is 21. The difference of these two is 19. So definitely not the first pair. Then if you're looking at the second one, we have 2 and 10. The product of the two is 20. However, the sum of the two is 12. And then the difference of the two is 8. So definitely not the second pair. Then let's look at these ones. The sum of the product of the two, which means this times this, is 20. Then the sum of these two is 9. So definitely the correct set would be this set. Right, so now we have established the factors. We just plug them into our brackets. And then now, once we are at this stage, we go back to the signs. We know that if the last sign is positive, both brackets are positive or negative. And then how do we then decide whether they are both positive or negative, judging from the fact that our last sign is positive? So we said the bigger factor takes the sign of the middle term. So our bigger factor here between 4 and 5, our biggest factor is a 5. So if the 5 takes the sign of the middle term, it makes this bracket to be negative. And then we know that if the sign is positive and then both of them will be negative, then it means the other 4 should also be negative. And then that's how you actually factorize this quadratic trinomial. So you'll have x minus 4 and x minus 5. Again, to check, you multiply it back. Right, x times x, you get an x squared. X times minus 5 is minus 5x. Minus 4 times x is minus 4x. So you have minus 5x with a minus 4x, you get a minus 9x. Then negative, negative, you get a positive. 4 times 5, you get a 20. Right, let's take another example. Suppose now I give you the second one to say x squared minus 7x plus 12. Again, factorizing this, we'll have two brackets. Factors of x squared, x and x without the square, x and x. Factors of 12, it's 3 and 4. It's 12 and 1. Right, does 12 and 1 give us 7? Definitely not. Does 3 and 4 give us 7? Definitely yes. Then we'll have a 4 and a 3. And then now the last sign is positive. The bigger number takes the sign of the middle term. So it means this is negative. This is also negative. And then now again we have factorized this. Let's look at another one where now we have the middle term as being positive. So if you have x squared plus 11x plus 24. Right, so factorizing these two brackets, now x squared, factors of x squared, x and x, then factors of 24, 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. Right, and then again 6 and 4, 8 and 3, 12 and 2, 1 and 24. So we are looking for the ones that are going to give us 11. When multiplied, these two are not going to give us 11. When multiplied, these two are also not going to give us an 11. Then when multiplied, this times this is 24. This and this does give us 11 when added, because 3 plus 8 is 11. Therefore, our correct set would be this one, because 4 times 6 is 24. However, 4 plus 6 is 10, and 4 minus 6 is negative 2. So it does not get us anywhere closer to this 11. So the correct set would be, right, deliberately this side, I'm going to start with the smallest here, the biggest here. Right, the last sign is positive, so one bracket is positive, the other is negative. right? If you have it in this form now, it means that both brackets will be positive because the bigger factor here is 8, and then this one is also positive because the last sign is positive, right? Okay, that's how one tackles such. Now let's look at trinomials where the last sign is negative. Now how do we tackle those? So if the last sign is negative now, it means, let's consider an example that we just taken right now. Suppose we have x squared plus 11x minus a 12 this time. Again, factorizing this will simplify to x and x, then factors of 12, we still have them right here. 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. We want the ones that are going to give us 11. So like we did, it's 3 and 8. So we'll have a 3. We'll also have an 8. Right. This time around, our last bracket is negative. Right. Okay, wait, be careful, grade 12, grade 10s, be careful. It's definitely not 3 and 8 because, right, definitely not 3 and 8. However, let's look at this. Yes, these are two different questions, right? So definitely not this. So here we're actually looking at the factors of 12, not 24. Remember, this one was a 24. So we're looking for factors of 12. Factors of 12, it's 1 and 12 itself, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Then 4 and 3, 6 and 2, 12 and 1. So we're looking for the ones that are going to give us 11. So we definitely can see that the first set is the one that is going to give us the correct answer. Therefore, factorizing this, we'll have x and x. Then for those of 12, it's 12 and 1. Now things have changed, so we see that the last sign is negative now. So if the last sign is negative, then it means whenever you factorize, you'll have two brackets, but one is going to be positive, the other is going to be negative. And again, you deciding, still the same, the bigger factor will take the sign of the middle term. So now we have these two factors, then we know that one must be positive, the other must be negative. How do you then decide? The bigger factor takes the sign of the middle term. Between 1 and 12, which one is bigger? It's 12, so 12 should be positive. So if this one is positive, mathematically this one should be negative. Right, that's how you factorize these ones with the last sign being negative. Let's do one last example. If now I have x squared minus 2x minus an 8. Again, factorization, two brackets, factors of x squared, which is x and x, factors of 8, 1 and 8, 2 and 4, then 4 and 2, then 8 and 1. So we're looking for the ones that when multiplied, they give us 8. When subtracted or added, they give us 2. So 1 and 8 give us 8, but they give us a sum of 9 and a difference of 7. Then 2 and 4 gives us 8, and then they give us a sum of 6 and a difference of 2. So definitely these ones are the ones that we are looking for. So it means we'll have a 4, we'll have a 2, right? And then decide, bigger number takes the sign of the middle term. 4, why? Because the last sign is negative. So 4 would be negative, making our 2 to be positive, right? So grade 10s, one thing I need to emphasize is that for this one needs to remember especially the last sign. How do you then play around your signs? So you just need to check if your last sign is negative, and then you know that one bracket must be positive, the other is negative. Deciding will always be the same as the one that we started with. The bigger number will always take the sign of the middle term. Right, so these ones are just straightforward. Let's look at one where now we have our quadratic formula in the form, our quadratic trinomial in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. So in this case, it means our a is not 1 and our a is not even 0. Right, so again, let's tackle a problem which starts with a positive, where the last term is positive. Then we'll also look at the problem where the last term is negative. So if you are given an expression where you have 3x squared minus 24x plus 45. Right, remember from the techniques that I started with, whenever you grade 10s come to an exam and you are asked to factorize, the first thing that you look for is, can I take out the common factor? If the answer is yes, then you do that. If you can't, you check if can I group my terms? The answer is no. Can I take out the difference of two squares? Can I treat it as a trinomial? Can I treat it as a sum of difference of two cubes? It will depend. So here I can see that I have a coefficient. The moment I have a coefficient of x squared, it takes me back to thinking about the common factor. But then you can't just assume always to say there is going to be a common factor. You need to check. Is there a number I can divide all these three numbers by? The answer to this one should be yes, because our common factor in this case is definitely a 3. Right? All these numbers are divisible by 3. Therefore, I'm going to take out the common factor. When I take it out, it's more like dividing by the common factor. So you still apply what I said in the previous video to say every term divide by the common factor. So I'll have 3x squared divided by 3. The 3 divides, and then I'm left with x squared. Similarly, negative 24x divided by 3. Negative divided by positive is a negative. 24 divided by 3, that's an 8. And then with an x. And then lastly, positive 45 divided by 3. Positive divided by positive is a positive, and then 45 divided by 3, that's a 15. Right, so one would see that, okay, fine, although I had a common factor, but I still have something that is common. If you close away the brackets, then you will see that you actually have a quadratic trinomial, which we just tackled a few minutes ago. Then again, factorizing this, you'll have a bracket. Now you are going into the trinomial, you're factorizing the trinomial. Then factors of x squared is your x, is your x. Then factors of 15, 1 and 15. 2, definitely not. 3 and 5. Then there's no other numbers that you can multiply to give you 15. Right, we are looking at the ones that are going to be multiplied to give us 15, added or subtracted to give us 8. So we can see 1 and 15 doesn't work, but 3 and 5 does give us 8. So it's 3 and it's 5. So I'll have 5, I'll have my 3. Then the last sign is positive, so it means both brackets are positive. Decide. Then the 5 is bigger, so it takes the sign of the middle term, which means this is negative. This should also be negative. And then that way, ladies and gentlemen, we would have factorized our quadratic trinomial in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. Let's look at another one. If we have now 2x squared plus 18x plus 36. Again, you start by taking out the common factor if it's there. So you would agree with me to say all these numbers are divisible by 2. So my common factor, no need to write it down, but my common factor is a 2. So I take out a 2. In this one, I'm left with x squared. This divide by 2, I'm left with a positive 9x. This divide by 2, I'm left with a positive 18. Right, then having done that, I'll have my 2 outside here. Then I factorize my trinomial. Forgetting about these 2 for a moment. Factors of x squared, simply x and x. Factors of 18, it's 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. And then these factors again, vice versa. Right, so I'm looking at the ones that are going to give us 9. Definitely not this one. Definitely not this one, but 3 and 6 does give us 9. So it's 3 and it's 6. So I'll have my 3 here. I'll have my 6 here. Right, the last sign is positive, so it means both brackets should be positive or negative. Then decide, bigger factor takes the sign of the middle term. So this is positive, this should also be positive. You would see that I'm just not thinking about the signs, because once you have established which of the two is your bigger factor, then the signs follow mathematically. Right, then let's look at still trinomial which has a coefficient but now with a negative last term. Same question, or rather same techniques. We have 2x squared plus 14x minus 36. Right, can I take out the common factor? Answer is yes. My common factor is a 2. Then I'm left with all this divided by 2. I'm left with x squared. All this divided by 2. I'm left with positive 7x. All this divided by 2. I'm left with a negative 18. Right, then now to factorize, I'm going to focus on the trinomial, which is the bracket. Factors of 18, 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. These factors again in the reverse order, but I'm looking at the ones that are going to be multiplied to give me 18. Added, subtracted, they give me 7. 18 and 1, definitely not. 2 and 9, yes, 2 and 9 does give me a 7. 3 and 6 does not give me a 7 but a 9. Right, so this one's not true, but I can use 2 and 9. Right, then the last sign is negative. It means one bracket is positive, the other is negative, not forgetting the factors of the first term. Right, so decide which factor is going to be positive. Right, the bigger number takes the sign of the middle term. So if this one is positive, it means mathematically this one would be negative. Right, let me just do one last and then we can conclude. Suppose now lastly I'm given 5x squared plus 5x minus 18. Right, our common factor here would be a 5. Taking it out, I'm left with x squared. Taking it out here, I'm left with positive x. Taking it out here, I'm left with a negative 2. Right, factors of that, but before I have 5 into the 2 brackets. Factors of the first term, it's x and x. Factors of the last term, it's 1 and 2, nothing else. Right, 1 and 2. Right, so the last sign is negative. One bracket is positive, the other is negative. Bigger number always goes with the middle term. Then this is positive, meaning this one is negative. Then just like that, great tens, it would be done. So you would see that in all these, they have just one thing in common. First, take out the common factor if it's there. If it's not there, you find the factors of the first term, you find the factors of the last term that are going to give you the middle term. And then for you to decide on the signs, you look at the last sign. If it's positive, both brackets would be positive or negative. And then if the last sign is negative, both brackets will be positive. The one bracket will be positive and the other will be negative. And in both cases, whether both positive or both negative or positive and negative, for you to decide which bracket is positive or negative, or whether both are positive or negative, the bigger factor will always take the sign of the middle term. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I will just pause here for now, and then I'm going to create another video, part 3, which further deals with more problems on factorization. This video was particularly for factorizing quadratic trinomials. However, you've seen that there are difference of 2 squares, there are sum and difference of 2 cubes, there is a common factor which we've touched on already, and then there's also quadratic trinomials and grouping. So I'll look at other problems which deal with almost all of them combined or all of them individually. Right, please stay tuned for more. If you have any questions, please again put them on the comment section, and then I will definitely get back to you. Right, this is Maths with Molefe. Stay tuned for more. Until I see you on another one. Cheers, bye.